quick question. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I am so sick and tired of just everything right now. Everyone is so quick to say, stop doing this, stop thinking like this, stop telling me I'm wrong. I've literally convinced myself at this point, based on everything that everyone's telling me, my therapist, my family, my friends, that I'm just doing everything wrong. I'm healing wrong. I'm thinking wrong. I'm training wrong. I'm doing relationships wrong. Everything I do is wrong. And I'm so sick of it. Stop comparing. It's not even about comparison. Like, I genuinely just want love in my life so badly. It's literally not about anyone else. It's just about me and what I want. And being fucking over the fact that I don't have it. I feel like I have done so much work on myself. I have built a beautiful life for myself. I'm happy with my life where I'm at, my job. I'm successful. I'm independent. I'm healthier than I've ever been. I take such good care of myself. Truly, the only thing I'm missing in my life is someone to enjoy it with. And I'm so sick of waiting. Like, when is it going to be my turn? What more do I have to do to fix myself before I'm just allowed to be happy? Before I'm allowed to meet this universe soulmate person that God supposedly has for me? How much harder do I have to pray and manifest and wait? I feel like I'm being punished for something I didn't do. And I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. I don't expect a lot. I just want love in my life so bad. I want my life partner. Am I just supposed to be alone? Like, is that the message? That this beautiful life I've built for myself, like, it's just supposed to be me in it alone? Like, I know I have my dog and I love him so much, but like, I need love. All of my friends have their fiancés and their boyfriends and their husbands that they prioritize. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I've been left behind. And I really just want to find that person that matches my energy and wants to build a life with me.
Guys, as of today, this video has a whopping 12 million views on Twitter. About 1.2 million of them are due to a tweet of mine responding to this, and I just had to bring the conversation over to YouTube. So today, I am going to be presenting a defense of the Boss Babes. If you're watching for the first time, I'm Hannah Cox with BASEDPolitics, and this is my show, Histrionics, where every week I talk about women's issues from a centrist, sane point of view, which can be difficult to find these days. If you like this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out others in the series. Like I said, this week's episode is titled In Defense of the Boss Babes because I have had it with these knuckle draggers coming for women merely because they have chosen to work or have had to work to support themselves. As always, for those of you living your life peacefully away from the online morons in the manosphere, I will define my terms. Now, the term boss babe was originally coined by women to celebrate their achievements and those of the women around them. Generally speaking, a boss babe is a woman who is an ambitious, independent leader and entrepreneur. She is strong-willed, confident, and knows how to get things done. A boss babe is a woman who isn't afraid to take the lead and be her own boss. She knows that her success is determined by her courage and determination, not by anyone else. Boss babes are go-getters, taking charge of their lives without waiting for someone else to give them permission or take the lead. If those things trigger you or upset you, you have something deeply wrong with you. I have to just say that right out the gate. Because if anything, we need more people, especially more women, with this mentality. This is a very core of individualism, of self-reliance, of resiliency, of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. These used to be core American values, and they need to be again. We need more people who see themselves as champions versus victims. We need more people who look at the world around them and decide that they can whip it into shape and make it into their own image versus people who feel sorry for themselves or give up at the first sign of a problem. But as you might have guessed from this opening, the term has been co-opted by the manosphere and turned into a derogatory term meant to deride women who are, let's just be honest, out of their league from the people who sit around whining about women online all day. Let me play you one of their interpretations of this term.
The term boss babe has become popular in recent years, but it's often used to refer to women who are caught up in the hustle culture that encourages them to embrace hyper-masculine traits and compete with men rather than finding harmony with them. This can cause women to lose touch with their femininity as they become preoccupied with work and may prioritize their minds over their hearts. True femininity comes from a place of emotional depth and connection in the heart, not just the pursuit of success and achievement.
I like that he says women who are boss babes are caught in hustle culture, as if anybody has the option to not be with the government destroying our economy like it currently is. It is good for women to be hardworking and ambitious. The opposite of that is being a gold digger, which all of these men without gold spend an inordinate amount of time worrying about. And I have to also point out the obvious irony here, which is that most of the men in the manosphere spend a ton of time complaining about the family court system, about women using divorce as a means to take their wealth, about how unfair it is, women taking them for all they're worth, women using divorce as a means to get rich, all of which I've debunked in previous episodes. By the way, it's completely made up. But the irony here is if these men who are so afraid of this imagined future actually prioritize women who were hardworking and ambitious and had drive, they wouldn't have so much to worry about, because those women would have no need or desire to marry you simply to live off of you. And if you were to get divorced, they wouldn't be able to take all of your income, because typically in divorces, things are split down the middle. So if they're bringing their own thing to the table, then you're not going to get taken. No one said these guys were deep thinkers, though. Additionally, there is nothing masculine about hard work or ambition or drive. These are actually just characteristics that the vast majority of people have had throughout history and have had to have to survive, both men and women. I don't know where people got this fantasy that up until recently, women just laid around on couches all day and got dressed up and drank tea and didn't work or didn't contribute. You are so historically uneducated if you think that's the case. Even at the height of this imaginary utopia that these people are trying to point to, which I guess would be the 1950s, where there were a whole lot of issues going on behind the scenes, those women were still having to work very hard. They didn't even have washers, dryers. They were having to do manual labor just to wash the clothes. There has never been a time in history where the vast majority of women just got to lay around and do nothing. If there has been a time where women have not been as present in the visible workforce, being outside the home, that is strictly because the government and oppressive societies have banned it, not because being a hard worker or being driven is inherently masculine. These are the types of gender roles that I think are especially toxic. It's toxic to tell men that having emotions and feelings is feminine, and it's toxic to tell women that having drive, wanting purpose in the world, having ambitious is masculine. Anybody of good character should have these characteristics. What I think is interesting about his video, though, and the vast majority of men who entered this conversation, is that they pretty openly hit the nail on the head most of the time, which is that they don't want to compete with women. Hence, you have all of the laws blocking them from equal rights. We know that guy. We saw you try to avoid it for decades. And the reality is that when they do have to compete with women, it seems they are increasingly losing. As a refresher of topics we've covered on this series before, women are getting more degrees than men, women are buying more homes than men. And as a side note, before I go further, I have to nip something in the bud, because I always see these manosphere men in the comments be like, women aren't buying most of the houses, they're getting them in divorces. No, women are buying, purchasing more homes than men. And also, they don't always get the home in a divorce. Quick Google AI overview says a house is not always split 50-50 in a divorce, and how often women get the house depends on the state and other factors. In community property states, each spouse is entitled to 50% of the marital assets, including the house. So one spouse may get more of some of the marital property if the other gets to keep the home. In equitable distribution states, each spouse gets a fair but not necessarily equal share of marital property, so one spouse may be entitled to more or less than 50% of the home. Back to my main point. Women have made tremendous gains in labor force participation and wages, and they've increased their presence in the highest paying jobs. Also, the share of women in opposite-sex marriages who earn as much or more than their husbands has roughly tripled over the past 50 years. So yeah, it's pretty clear that when it comes to this whole competition, women are winning right now, and that's just when it comes to work. Women also have much larger social networks, better support systems, they're more likely to be religious, they are more likely to have gone to therapy, and as a whole, it just seems like they are doing much better than men on average. And of course, I'm speaking in generalities here, but I just want to say, even in my anecdotal experience, I have witnessed this. I have often said that I have so many female friends who are killing it at work, who are making great money, and not only just making great money, but who have forged careers for themselves that they really like and find purpose in. They have great jobs. Those women are also typically very fit and beautiful and active. They have huge social networks. They have great families. They're traveling all over the world. They're also typically very cultured. They have a lot of hobbies. They're going to therapy. They're working on their issues. As a whole, they're just very evolved. And when I look at men in the same age and the same demographics, I just don't know a lot of men that I can say that about. And oftentimes these women are struggling to find partners because they aren't finding men that are in their same league. And in response to these kinds of situations, we have these really gross loser men online who are saying, like, that's some fault of you. You're just gross because you're a boss babe. Like, nobody wants you. And I think that there is a huge problem with this, as I'm going to get to. I think first and foremost, it's not realistic to expect women to lower their standards and look for partners who are far beneath them. I don't think that would even end up being a long-term match, even if they did that for reasons I'll get to. But furthermore, the real question we should be asking is, why are there not as many men in that dating pool as there are women? To go back to this TikToker's definition, which is shared by much of the manosphere, he goes on to say that boss babes may be preoccupied with work. So I guess the problem is that they aren't giving men their undivided attention. I just don't know how that's an issue. If you want somebody whose only interest and hobby is you, something's off. And I don't even think that that's accurate. Most of the people are grossed out by somebody who has nothing going for themselves. And then lastly, he again emphasizes that boss babes are leading with their brains instead of their hearts. And he tries to make this a gender issue versus a common sense one. For the record, you should be leading with your head, not your heart. I think this is so ridiculous. Men will sit here and complain about women being emotional and use that to put them down. But then when women are logical and use their brains, they're masculine. Like, make it make sense. I think you just hate women. Now, full disclaimer in this conversation, I would consider myself a boss babe. I never wanted kids. I did not want to get married young. I always said I would not get married until my 30s. It mattered a lot to me to have a successful career, not just financially, but to have a career that I found purpose in and meaning, that I thought was exciting and interesting, and where I felt like I could use my skills. And I fully acknowledged when I was in college and in my young adulthood that that's really hard to achieve. Most people don't get that. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of intentionality, and you do have to be pretty selfish in the decisions you make to achieve that. You can have it all, you just can't have it all at once. For me, I wanted to live my life for myself for a time period. I also wanted to be able to see the world. I wanted to be able to whip it around by the tail, as my mom often says. But even as I was pursuing this, I acknowledged that it could hurt my dating prospects. In my early 20s, I lived with my best guy friends, and we often would talk about romantic relationships. And even when I was working in the music industry, I was already experiencing some of the issues we're talking about around boss babes. A lot of men would be very intimidated by my job. They wouldn't approach me. If they did approach me and it became clear that they weren't really at the same place in their career, they would back off. And when I made the decision to move into politics, I'd kind of been dabbling with politics on the side. I decided to make the jump full time. My guy roommate said to me, "You're going to have an impossible time dating now, because not only will men be intimidated by you, but they're going to be in competition with you because men see politics as their domain. And so if you are competing with them in politics and dominating them, as he knew I would, that's going to make them even less romantically interested in you." And my response to that was, so be it. I'd never want a weak man like that to begin with. So it didn't faze me. And I think that's the position that most actual boss babes have. So if all of this criticism from the manosphere were just being leveled against people like me who are actual intentional boss babes, I probably wouldn't pay it any attention whatsoever, because I just don't care about their opinions. I love Ayn Rand for her economic and philosophical views, but I also love her for her views on romantic relationships. I think she was 100% on point. And her main point is that men and women cannot be in long-lasting romantic relationships with people who are beneath them. She talks about her views in a number of books, but I personally love the bit where she talks about them in the novel Atlas Shrugged, which is a massive novel. So ChatGPT came to my rescue. It saved me hours of research and work on this episode, actually, and it compiled this segment of Atlas Shrugged for me like that. So I'm going to read you its summary of her work in Atlas Shrugged. I asked ChatGPT about her views in Atlas Shrugged. In Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand explores the theme of individual achievement and its connection to personal relationships. Her quote in the book is, "You who won't permit 1% of your ability to be wasted, who will deliver your best effort at any chance offered to you, you'll never be able to reconcile it with the man who does less than his best. It's not hard to admit that you would admire him only in proportion to his ability, but what you can't permit yourself to admit is that your love is proportionate to your admiration. And if you allow yourself to love any man lower than your highest vision, you'll lose self-respect." This passage emphasizes Rand's belief that love is fundamentally linked to one's values and achievements. For her, the idea that an achiever can genuinely love someone who does not share the same level of ambition and productivity is contradictory, as it would undermine the achiever's own values and self-respect. I 1010% agree with that. I could not love a man who I saw as less ambitious and productive than me. Like, it would turn me off, it would gross me out. I am obsessed with my fiance because he is brilliant at literally everything he touches. He is such a go-getter. He's so productive. Like, the two of us together are a force to be reckoned with. We get stuff done like that. I couldn't be with a lesser man. I also couldn't be with a man who was less than me in that way and who also was mad at me about it, right? Who felt emasculated because of the things that I think are best about me. So all that to say, I wouldn't take men who look down on boss babes on a silver platter. But my issue here, and why I ultimately want to discuss this, is because these men are not really coming just for me. Instead, they attribute this outlook to women whose outlook looks nothing like mine. As you saw in the opening video, they will use this term to mock and deride women who would very much like to be married, even be married young, who very much want families, and who are struggling to find good prospects. And they use it as a way to tear them down and feel better in their basement. So I'm here to defend those women because I am over the bullying and harassment I am seeing from these loser men. As I mentioned, I commented on the opening video and the conversation that was swirling around it over the weekend on Twitter, and my post now has about 1.3 million impressions. In it, I said I'm so tired of seeing people dunk on women like this. 1, many women would gladly get married at any age. Few men are pursuing that in their 20s, so start talking to them. 2, when women don't find someone early on, we tell them it's about them. They just need to work on themselves, be okay on their own, pursue their own interests, and many of them do. They use that time and become successful in work, financially, well-rounded with hobbies and social circles. And then people say they can't find a man because they're a boss babe or asking for too much. What they should be asking is why men aren't leveling up during their single time. Most women don't have crazy high standards. I'm actually astounded at the things many women put up with. The bar is pretty low and men still aren't reaching it much of the time. Furthermore, why would someone who has used their time to improve themselves and get ahead in life want to settle for someone who is beneath them and who hasn't done the same? It doesn't add up. As Ayn Rand wrote, long-lasting love requires admiration for one another, and you simply can't admire someone who is beneath you, especially as a woman. Third, overall, I'm over this conversation centering on these women and trying to bully them into taking scraps instead of focusing on what needs to happen so that men keep up and become desirable and emotionally available partners in a playing field where genders are equal. We're not going back to the past. The majority of women are not going to fall for these tactics or willingly go back to unequal partnerships. So it's time to start talking about the future and how to create a society where men and women like and get value from one another when all things are equal. Now, as I said, that post went viral and it had a lot of support, but also some of the comments beneath it are amongst the nastiest, most vitriolic, and hateful I've ever seen. Like, they're on par with the commentary you'll see from literal Nazis online. These people are rabid, and by people, I do mean mostly men. I pulled just a few of them to show you the level of unhinged we're dealing with here. This guy says, if you're tired of us correcting these entitled, arrogant women, then police your own. Police my own from what? The girl's literally crying on camera because she can't find a boyfriend. Like, what is there to hold her accountable for? They literally think they have been personally wronged by this woman. It is bizarre. He goes on to say, nobody's asking her to settle for scraps. She is the freaking scraps, and men are not wasting their time on these morons. She can fix herself or be alone. This is non-negotiable. Get on board or be miserably single. Base trad wives over thin, dumb, entitled birthing persons. The grammar is as you would expect it to be. Like, I can't imagine having this much animosity for a woman you just randomly happen to see crying online about her inability to find a partner. Like, normal people would feel empathy for her, would feel sorry for her, would remember their own struggles finding their partner. But this guy is literally mad at her. He calls her scraps while knowing nothing about her. She says she has a successful job, that she's built a beautiful life, that she's worked on herself. Seems like she's doing a lot and trying to bring a lot to the table. And yet he says she needs to fix herself or be alone. Like, make it make sense. The projection here is so much. Another guy said, we aren't bitter. It's satisfying watching her type reap what she sowed. What did she sow, sir? Also, for the record, definitionally, bitter means angry, hurt, or resentful because of one's bad experiences or a sense of unjust treatment. So it seems bitter is the exact emotion you are feeling. Like, when are we going to teach men to identify their emotions? They are so emotional, and yet they think that they are like the less emotional sex because they have not identified anger and bitterness as emotions. This guy says, they get what they deserve. Why does she deserve to not find a partner or be happy? Because you haven't? Another guy says, it'll be interesting to know how many men she's turned down. Because women just have to accept absolutely any man that approaches them or they deserve to be alone. Another one goes, this is what feminism does. For every action, there is a reaction. Feminism is literally just the fight for the equality of the sexes. I don't know why having equality of the sexes means that a random girl could not find a partner. Many feminists, myself included, have had no issues with that. Like, I don't think these guys could actually define feminism if you paid them $100. It's just this like coverall term they use to apply broadly to any woman they don't like. Any woman that pushes back on them, any woman that like isn't falling in their lap, they're like, that's because of feminism.
A fresh take on feminism.
Fortunately for me and my sanity, this guy joined the conversation and he actually had a lot of good points he made. One of them is that he said, with all posts like this, there are a lot of men who take a sort of smug satisfaction in a pretty woman struggling with relationships because they are bitter about their own relations and want to just find a representative for all women they can hate on and unload frustration on. He's 100% right, because normal, well-adjusted people would feel sorry for her or at least just like keep scrolling. Instead, the incels and the red pill guys, they hear this and it like gets them off. They know nothing about her dating history. They know nothing about who she has turned down, what her character is, how many people she slept with, which is gross that they would even go there or care, but they do. They're just mad that they have no options, so it makes them feel validated when they see a pretty woman that it seems doesn't either. Another common thing I saw repeated over and over ad nauseum in the comments is this whole myth of the 80-20 rule. Now, one thing you have to know about the manosphere is that they are obsessed with this statistic that is completely baseless. Here's one example of a guy referencing it. He says, when women make over 6 figures, their dating pool becomes very small because she only wants a man that makes more than she does. Less than 8% of men make that money. The pool gets even smaller if he has to be tall and fit. The I only date up attitude is killing her love life. So the 80-20 myth goes that 80% of women are looking for only 20% of men, and that their standards are the man must be 6 foot tall, have a six-pack, and make 6 figures. This is like incel word porn. I think like this is what they would want if they were a woman, because this is not what most women are looking for. And the idea that 80% of women like just think they're in the top 1%, so they're only going to go for these other guys that are in the top 1% as defined by the incels is like, it drives them nuts. They're so mad. And they feel that they are being rejected by most women because all of these women that should be in their league and should be paying attention to them instead are chasing the 1% of guys who are 666. They call that Chad. They believe these women have led promiscuous fun lives chasing Chad while they have suffered in their basements. And now that Chad won't settle down with them and they can't find a partner, they can't be had by them either, and they will end up alone just like them. But that's not what's happening actually at all. And this 80-20 thing, they made up. ChatGPT again came to my rescue. I'm telling you, I owe my life to ChatGPT because I did not have time to go back through all this data, but I knew I'd read it somewhere. So I asked my friendly little AI bot, And it said, the claim that 80% of women are pursuing the top 20% of men is often cited in red pill communities, but is based on a misinterpretation and oversimplification of data from dating apps, notably Tinder. This notion originated from small-scale studies and user-conducted experiments rather than rigorous scientific research. One key source of this claim is a self-reported experiment on Medium, you know, where people go to blog, where the author found that a small percentage of men received a disproportionate amount of attention from women on Tinder. However, this quote study involved creating only 2 fake profiles and extrapolating broad conclusions from limited data, which lacks scientific validity. Further analysis shows that while dating apps do exhibit some level of inequality in terms of matches and interactions, this does not necessarily translate to the broader dating world. Critics argue that such findings are not representative of real-world dynamics and are influenced by the superficial nature of dating apps. Additionally, these conclusions are often skewed by the behavior of a subset of users who may not reflect typical dating patterns. Overall, the idea that 80% of women are chasing the top 20% of men is an oversimplified myth that fails to account for the complexities of human relationships and the limitations of the data from which it is derived. Now, as I've said for some time, I'm convinced most of these men can't read, or if they can, they are still in the bottom 10% of reading comprehension. So I'm not surprised that they heard the stat posted or said by some grifter podcast manosphere loser and just ran with it. But the fact of how baseless it is kind of high-key funny to me. Literally, a blogger on Medium made 2 profiles on Tinder and took her results, and they ran with it as if it was this big scientific body of research. In reality, most women would love to get married at any age. But the problem is they're often not finding suitable partners, and no, it's not because they're looking for a 666. Most are just looking for gainfully employed, not abusive, similar level of attraction, and someone who is nice to them. And if you get that, that's a pretty big deal. The bar is on the literal floor, and men are still failing to reach it.
So the Fumble Hall of Fame is growing in capacity. Hey, I'm sorry I didn't message you earlier today, but I wanted to say I enjoyed our date yesterday. How did you feel about it? Okay, so we are off to a perfect start right here. This is of any person we've analyzed, this dude is in the driver's seat right now. Oh yeah, I was wondering why you didn't message sooner. No, get over here. Get over here. This is me as a coach screaming at my player. No, we didn't need that sentence. I agree, it was very enjoyable. That's how it, no. I agree, it was very enjoyable. Should have been the first sentence. Would you like to see each other between Christmas and New Year's? I can take you to the restaurant you're talking about. Okay, again, just didn't need the first sentence. That's fine. I can't. I'm going to be at my parents' between Christmas and New Year's, maybe sometime in January. I'm going to be a little busy, though. So you don't want to see each other anymore? No, bro. No, stop. No, that's not what I said at all. Well, it kind of seems that way. You expect me to believe that you aren't going out to party on New Year's? What does that have? Not this year. Then why can't you see me in January? I literally said I can. I just said I'll be a little busy. Okay, well, you should make some time for yourself instead of work. If you spend time with me, you could relax. What? That's not really time to myself then, is it? Bro, we are losing her. What are you doing? We didn't need any of this conversation. We literally could have just said, we agree the date went well. We did not need to add all of this stuff. So you don't want to see me. Oh my. You are going to be so confrontational about it. I don't really want to. I literally paid for your diner. Damn, okay, bro. He's paying for full diners. That's impressive. I'm not even going to lie. And this is the thanks I get. You should be thankful I spent the time getting to know you. Now you want to ditch me. WTF. I don't really know what to say to that. You could start by apologizing for wasting my time. Have fun. Okay. I guess I dodged a bullet here. I don't really think you're the one, so you aren't going to answer me? You're a waste of time, you know that? Bro, why are you messaging her then? You're still... Bro, we already messed this up. Somehow, we had a wide open layup to win it. That's all we had. You better pay B back for the dinner, because this is ridiculous. I took you out to a nice diner that you said you enjoyed, and now you won't go on a second date with me. That was never said. Not reading the next part. You literally have no life. You say you are too busy to see me. Could have just told me straight up that you are busy all the time before I went on a date with you. Do you usually waste people's time and money? Messing around for free, food and attention. I can't believe I actually was considering settling down with a woman so old and so ugly. Girls over 21 are a waste of time. That might be the biggest red flag sentence I've ever seen in my entire life. Also, you think this girl is ugly. Why did you date her? Why are you upset about? I just don't understand the logic there. Why does a rejection turn them ugly? Because you had to have been attracted to this girl to go on a date with her. You'd be the first person in the history of dating to date someone you thought was ugly. Never heard of that. I don't need to settle for an ugly duckling like yourself. Then stop texting me. Get a life, dude. My life is better than yours. Life. I'm sorry, I should have been more understanding about your schedule. Sorry if you feel disrespected. And then at 1 a.m. on that day, you up?
I know I keep promising you guys this episode and I haven't done it yet, but I promise I'm coming with an episode of just how bad the dating stories are online from women. I cannot even fathom what so many of these women are dealing with. I'm talking paying men's bills. I'm talking men living in their homes rent-free. I'm talking dads not showing up for basic visitation with their kids. I'm talking ghosting. I'm talking like sexual explicit conversations right out the gate. I'm talking unhinged emotional reactions to normal conversations. I'm talking literal abuse, lots of cheating. And even when women do find like a somewhat satisfactory partner and get into a relationship with them, there are so many women dealing with men who will not ultimately commit, who will not move the relationship forward, who want to play house, who want to live together, and who will not propose. There is an avoidance epidemic within the male population in this country, and it needs to be dealt with. In order for women to get married young, which is what these people ultimately want, men have to propose young. If you want a trad wife, you have to earn enough money to enable her to not work. Again, I'm not really advocating any of these lifestyles. I think there's major pitfalls to them, but I will always stand by a woman's right to choose them. But again, ultimately, if you want more women to choose them, you gotta have more men that are choosing them in the first place. Instead, we have a generation of men who are emotionally stunted. They want a homemaker when they have no home. They want a woman to submit to them when they have shown zero propensity for leadership. They're trying to find potential mothers because they are still children. I can't tell you how many women I have seen online talking about their husbands and a lot of times ex-husbands and saying that they consider them their bonus child.
You women nowadays are always telling men that we don't want girlfriends. We want moms.
By telling, do you mean observing that this is happening? Or, you know what? I'm going to give you a chance. Let's prove them wrong together.
When we ask you to do basic women-like things for us.
By women-like, do you mean mommy-like?
No, we want you to act like women in our mom's generation. You know, the women that raised us?
Yeah. I called the woman that raised me mom.
The women that took care of their husbands, cooked for their husbands.
Took care of? Like they're a little guy who needs his mommy?
Didn't want to go to work and abandon their kids.
You want them to be a stay-at-home mommy?
Didn't want to party at the clubs all weekend and act like they hate men all the time.
Not all men. But even if some do, I imagine hate is an easier feeling to feel than love for a romantic partner who wants you to be their mommy.
So no, we don't want moms.
Are you sure? You should watch your video. Because that's what it sounds like you want.
We want you to act like wives.
Wives with babies? So mummies?
Unfortunately for us men, it seems like the last time that happened was in our mom's generation.
So in short, no, we don't want you to be a mom. We want you to specifically be our mom.
Like, seriously, they really do want moms. It's so obvious. I can't stand the push for women not to work. I think the right to work was hard won and very important for women. I don't like the insinuation that women should be tradwives or that they're doing something wrong by opting into working. I don't like this push for women to have to put themselves second. I support your right to opt into any of these roles, as I've said, but I would never advocate for a woman I love to put themselves in that position. But all that being said, let's say this is your agenda because birth rates are declining or because you think men are entitled to these kinds of services from women, or you just think that's what would make the world go round smoother. Why are you not talking to men? Why are you bullying women who are just working, oftentimes because they haven't found a man yet? right? Again, most of these women are not like me. They're not saying like, I want to go work, I want to get my bag, I'm refusing to get married till later in life, I don't want to have kids. No, most of them are saying like, I really want these things. I just can't find a man who also wants them and treats me well. And instead of feeling sorry for them and asking the obvious questions of like, what is going wrong with men, they deride these women for working and providing for themselves in the meantime. What would you rather them do? Go on welfare? For the record, there is already a plethora of women who don't need talking to or convincing to opt into these lifestyles. There are plenty of women actively looking for husbands, trying their hardest to settle down, and who would love to be stay-at-home moms. I've seen this firsthand, not only from the vast majority of my friends, but also in the church. I can't tell you how many single and very virtuous and very religious women there are in churches showing up every Sunday, every Wednesday, to Bible studies, to various meetups, to volunteer. Yes, because they want to be involved in those things, but also because they are really, really hoping to meet a like-minded husband. And you know who's not showing up in those spaces? Single men.
I've been dating since I was 15. I'm exhausted. Where is he?
Like literally, there's like one single man in those spaces for every 15 women. It's crazy.
Okay, it's day 2. And I gotta go back in the office. Yeah, gotta go back. So, maybe my first message wasn't clear, but I need y'all to listen to me. I need someone to help me. Get off this job. Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Someone, please. Someone. All right, maybe I'll try a different tactic. Let me think about my qualities. Okay. I'm nice. I can clean. Oh, I clean really well. I can cook. I can cook. I can clean. I can run you bubble baths. I can do all of that. I'm a winner. Someone come get me right now. I'm ready. Pull up. Come get me. This is so ghetto.
And it's ironic because these men are so bitter about not being picked, and yet they're not going to go pick the women who are like waiting and looking for allegedly the same lifestyle they want. And the reason for that is because they don't want those women. They want the boss babe. Thus, all the vitriol and hatred you see towards these women online. They want them so badly.
So where are the girls that are not going to be with a man just for his money? The one that would just leave her man on the dime as soon as she finds another man that's more financially stable? Where are the girls that aren't posting only bikini pictures on their Instagram? Where are the girls that want to like experience culture and spend money on like traveling and actual cool things instead of materialistic things? The girl that lost attraction for me strictly based on the fact that I drive a Volkswagen? Where and how do I find this woman? Because when I do, I'm going to put a ring on that.
This man likes materialistic women. I know what he said, but did you hear him? Because I heard a man that said, all the women on Instagram wear bikinis. What? All the women you follow on Instagram wear bikinis because you like that. Talking about a woman that left you because you drive a Volkswagen? So you found a materialistic woman who didn't want the materials that you were offering, so now you mad at all women? What kind of woman are you dating that you have to worry about her leaving you to find a man who is more financially stable? Like, it's you. The problem here is you. The call is coming from inside the house. And all these women in the comment section like, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. I'm not. That's what he wanted. Men who start off with this whole, I don't like materialistic women right off the bat, is because they don't want to spend money on you. It's not your duty, nor is it your responsibility to prove to a man that you're not a gold digger by letting him offer you less.
They want to complain about the woman who's hot, who's getting her own bag, and who's all over Instagram and traveling because they cannot afford her. They cannot get her. They cannot convince her to take scraps. And that's why they are trying to bully her. If they wanted women who are not all over Instagram, who are not super made up, who are not living a luxurious lifestyle, again, there are plenty of places they could be looking for them and they'd probably find a lot more options. But instead, they want to convince the women who are on top that something is wrong with them so that they'll lower their standards and accept less than what they're worth. This would be like if you were a middle-income person and you showed up at a car dealership and you saw a Lamborghini and you were like, I really want that car. I'll give you $15,000 for it. And the dealer would be like, absolutely not. Why would I sell you this car? And you're like, but I really want it and I deserve it. And I would be a great owner and I would take really good care of it. And like, I don't understand why you don't appreciate all the like things I would do for it. And the guy's like, I don't care. It costs $100,000 and you don't have that. It's the same situation. They are wanting things they cannot access. They are not willing to do the work themselves to get on the same playing field, to get where they could deserve women who are up here. And so the bullying. While I think that probably is the majority of these men, I also think there's a percentage of them who want to be the boss babe. They are so jealous of these women and their lifestyles. They want to be them so bad.
What is it about men that they always have to come in and like humble us?
Men are jealous of women. It is the root of all of our issues as genders in our society. Men are jealous of women. And from the lens of a man, you could see why that would be the case. The attention that women receive is not attention the majority of men will ever receive in their lives. Now, women are often the targets of hostile, aggressive, and even violent attention. But conversely, most men aren't the subject of attention ever. Most of their existences are irrelevant unless they are providing something or serving a purpose. Now, this is not me playing my little violin for men. We all have our crosses to bear, and it is a patriarchal society that has set up the perspectives of the genders in this way. The same society that the majority of men uphold. I think if the majority of men stopped and observed the plights of women due to the patriarchy, they would solve a lot of their own problems in that process. That usually doesn't happen. So again, I'm not playing my tiny violin for anybody. However, the hyperfixation, the hypersexualization of women does cause men to envy us. From the viewpoint of a man, women can date as many people as possible, have much more options. And not only do they have more options than suitors, but a lot of our suitors are willing to provide lifestyles for us. I have several men in my life that are not only envious of the men that I date, but they're envious of the lifestyle that these men provide for me. It's a double-sided envy. Not only do they want to be with beautiful women to receive some kind of social status, to feel validated as men, but they want the attention and the lifestyle that these women are awarded. And again, since there's not a ton of thought on the adversities that women face, the advantages of being a woman, the advantages of being an attractive woman is all that men are really left to observe. This creates a hatred for women in their hearts. Not only do they resent not being able to have them, but they resent what they have. That's why you'll see so many comments talking about, OnlyFans and girls having sugar daddies and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, if any of these men woke up tomorrow as a woman, they would do the same thing, if not worse. And the thing that deters a lot of women from pursuing these paths is because they are so shamed by society where men's voices are the loudest. But it's the catch-22 that we're always presented with, where they want us to put out, but then they judge us for being sluts. It's because they have this conflicting contradiction of emotion that they're constantly wrestling with. Now, I'm envious of men too. I'm envious of the reality they face in several ways, and I can make a separate video about that. But the reason why they always try to put us down whenever we get a little bit of leadway is because they already feel like we have it too good, and they're jealous.
The majority of these men would love to be flew out. They would love to be taken to nice dinners. They would absolutely love to be taken on trips, to be given attention, to be called pretty, to have people simping in their comments. They want the options that many women have just by nature of being pretty and being competent. And thus you see all of the animosity towards women who they perceive to be living a life that is far above the one they can achieve for themselves or that anyone would give them. But regardless of their motivations, I am done talking about women in these situations. It's time we focus the conversation on men and the massive problems they are having in this country right now. They want to go back to the past so badly because they don't want to have to figure out how to compete now. But it's not going to happen. Women are waking up and opting out. While many of these incels and red pillars claim that they're just gonna be single and stay to themselves, it's like nobody's asking you not to. You're not hurting women with that. Women already have far more options than men do when it comes to the dating pool. But what you actually see is a lot of women who have options truly opting out. They are all over TikTok talking about how they are choosing to stay single. They've had terrible experiences with men. They feel more at peace with themselves and their cats. And the difference between them opting out and the incels and red pillars that are allegedly opting out, but like were already out. It's like somebody who like opts out once they were already kicked out. It's like nobody invited you to play. You can't opt out. But anyways, let's just say their whole thing is true. They opted out. The difference is the women who are having this conversation, they seem truly at peace with it. They seem happy. They seem content. They're filling their lives in other ways. They still seem well-rounded. And they really don't sound all that bitter to me. They maybe sound hurt. They maybe sound jaded, but not bitter. They're not angry. There's not this like seeding animosity coming from them. When you talk to the men who are opting out, they are like foaming at the mouth. They are so bitter and angry and just mean. And they aren't filling their lives in the same ways, right? It's not that they're filling their times with all these other really great hobbies or things that have purpose or building their careers up. No, like their lives are kind of going like this in general. The reality is they don't have the political power to overturn the 19th Amendment. They don't have the ability to force women back into the home. They don't even have the balls to like put their real profile picture on their profile. So if we want the conversation to move forward, we need to start talking about the real situations these men are living in and what can be done so that they can get out of this rut and actually become desirable partners for women. And I'll be honest, I don't know that these questions have easy, obvious answers, but I know that they're important. Questions like, why is it that women are able to get so far ahead while single, but men aren't? You can't complain about women wanting to be with people who make similar incomes to them without pointing out that it's weird so many women are increasingly able to earn more and men are not keeping up. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, even if women decided, like, I'm going to date way down financially, it wouldn't work out well for them. We see over and over and over, men are very resentful of women who out-earn them. They are more likely to cheat on a wife that earns more than them. They're more likely to leave them. So all this push for women to like take men who are beneath them would not even work out for them in the long run because men have an issue with women succeeding.
Babe, my study was published to the American Psychological Association Journal of Personality and Social Psychology.
Oh, Kate, that's great news. Fantastic, amazing, so great for you, wifey. What was it about?
It was about how men feel worse about themselves when female partners succeed.
Uh-huh. That's fascinating. I never would have guessed that in a million empirical studies. I imagine that women's self-esteem also takes a hit.
No, actually, not at all. You would assume that a man might feel threatened if his girlfriend outperformed him in something that they're doing together, like
publishing research?
Like losing weight.
Yeah, that.
But we found evidence that men automatically interpret a partner's success as their own failure, even when they're not in direct competition.
Well, I mean, can you really tell that off of one?
We studied 896 people across 5 experiments.
Yeah, well, if you're studying Americans, that makes sense, given the cultural and gender bias.
2 of those studies were done in the Netherlands.
Oh, yeah, because the Netherlands boasts one of the smallest gender gaps in labor education and politics. Smart.
Exactly. The men there said they felt fine about their partner's success, but the implicit self-esteem test that we did revealed otherwise.
Wow, yeah, very surprising findings. I'm sure the basis of the achievements have some influence.
Oh no, it didn't matter if the achievements were social, intellectual, or even related to the men's own successes or failures.
Oh.
Men subconsciously felt worse about themselves when their partner succeeded. Oh. And their self-esteem took an even bigger hit if the women succeeded at something that they themselves had failed at.
What? What? Why?
You know, I think it's because ambition and success are qualities generally important to women selecting mates. So men were worried that their partners may trade up for someone better.
Like Gottman.
What?
What? Nothing. No, congratulations, babe. That is really great news, and I celebrate your success as my own.
Aw, thanks, babe. Oh, it was also really interesting. We found that women felt optimistic about the future of their relationships when a partner had success, where the men felt pessimistic.
You don't say.
It would be interesting to see a similar study done of gay couples.
Yeah, maybe I'll pivot my research as well.
To what, babe?
You know, maybe I'll start looking at the ways to deconstruct the patriarchy, you know? The ways we teach gender bias in this country. The toxic stereotypes we hold men to that lead to this internal feeling of failure.
That's amazing. I love you so much.
I love you too. Now get back out there and do more studies and get them published. Or not. You know, failure is a part of success.
Ugh, I'm so glad you're not one of the statistical men from my studies, babe.
Good luck, babe.
I'm so glad you actually care about my success as a woman and my career, even though we have the same field of research that we're doing. Thank you so much for not being threatened at all by my successes.
You also can't say that men should be the natural leaders of society and then act like they're just huge victims in this whole situation and capable of getting themselves out of it. To me, what this whole conversation is proving is that there is no natural masculine inclination towards leadership. In fact, it's women who do the bulk of leading in society. They do most of the child rearing. They do most of the political organizing. They do most of the emotional support in the relationship. So I'm genuinely curious, what are men doing with their time? Where are they leading? Where are they taking self-responsibility? And when I pose some of these questions, I'm often told, this is just because of feminism. They're failing because of feminism. And that doesn't make any sense. How did women getting equal rights in this country mean that you lose? Men still hold most of the actual seats of power in this country. They had a tremendous head start on women for, centuries and centuries. So how is women having full equality, which really was only achieved by, late 80s, somehow undercutting you to where our generation of men looks like this? Where you can't keep up financially, where you're angry, where you don't have friends in a social network, where you aren't leading in your community, you're not active in your community. That is not feminism's fault. Something deeper is going on there. I also often hear people say it's the schools when you say this, and that also just does not hold water for me. The government has a monopoly on schools. Most people go to public schools, and because the government has a monopoly on schools, not much has changed in 100 years, even though it should. So it doesn't explain how men were thriving and coming into true masculinity and entering healthy partnerships and having families 100 years ago, and now all of a sudden they can't do these things because of the schools. Nothing has changed significantly in schools, and if anything, schools should be harder. So I don't understand how that's what's holding men back. Some would point to affirmative action. Thank God we got rid of that, because I think it's been an absolute scapegoat, and now that can't be blamed anymore. And even then, that really only pertained to which colleges you could get into. And at the end of the day, anybody can get into college in this country. It's a money grab. You can get into college. Can you get into Harvard? Probably not, but you probably couldn't without affirmative action either. As a whole, because men are so mad at all of these quote boss babes out there, it must be asked, why are there so many women boss babying all the way to the sun like an Ithacus, and men cannot even get up off the ground right now? I was really interested in this comment I saw in response to my tweet where he said, in Norway, we have a men's committee focused on men's challenges and policy proposals to help with these things. What I love about their focus is that unlike incel, red pill, they don't reduce men's problems to being about women or feminism. That really piqued my interest. This was the same guy that was providing thoughtful commentary throughout the discourse on this post, and I saw him reference this a few more times. So I'm going to be looking more into what Norway is doing. I was not familiar with this, but I'm definitely curious. And I think that it seems like, at least from the outside, they're onto something. Because men are not failing as a result of women. It's not on women. It's not our responsibility to fix you. Women were hamstringed in this country for well over 100 years. And now that we do have true equality, we are making up for lost time. We're opening businesses, we're pursuing degrees, again, we're working on ourselves. Women are off to the races. It's not their fault that men are sitting home.
A woman made a beautiful video where she said that her husband taught her how to be a relaxed woman. He made her feel safe and secure, and he told her that her rest and relaxation wasn't a recommendation, it was a requirement. He allowed her to step out of her survival mode and into her softness through his actions and through keeping his word. We hear a lot from modern men today about how they want soft, nurturing, feminine women, but what they fail to understand is all of that is their responsibility. It's on them to make a woman feel safe to be soft with them. You as a man are not entitled to a woman's softness. You have to earn it. You need to provide the environment for her to feel safe to be soft with you. You need to prove to her that you're a protector, not a predator, that you're not a man who will abandon her, and that you're not a man who will abuse her softness. The woman in the video said that her husband would always say things like, I got you. But when the tough times actually came, he followed through. A man who keeps his word, provides, and earns your trust allows your femininity to truly flourish.
And while I can't exactly answer all the questions I've posed here today, I don't think anybody can. I will say one gigantic step that needs to happen when it comes to repairing the relations between the genders, and also just when it comes to men finding a way to be happy and successful in a world where there is true equality, comes down to them getting over this hang-up they have about not being attracted to strong women. If you are a man who is turned off by strong women, if you are a man who feels emasculated when a woman is smarter than you, if you are a man who feels like you shouldn't have to compete with women, you're weak. That is a weak man. Only a weak person feels that way. Or you're an abuser. Like, this is kind of the language of abusers, when you want somebody to be much weaker and stupider and like more pliable than you are. A strong, ambitious, intelligent woman choosing you speaks very highly of you. That's why if you look at some of the most successful men on the planet, you'll note that the women they are choosing are very different than the types the red pill community claims to want. They're choosing women who are successful, who are well educated, who are independent, and who are often older, I might add. These men in these terminally online communities are prioritizing the absolute wrong things in women and in a partner in general. When you fixate on age and virginity and fertility like a freaking creep, I might add, you end up with people who are immature. You end up with people whose brains are not fully formed. You end up with people who don't have a whole lot to bring to the table throughout their lifetimes. Instead, men and women should be looking for partners who have similar values, who have character, which, by the way, being a hard worker, ambition, grit, resilience, those are fundamental aspects of good character. You should be looking for someone who is intelligent. If you want someone who is dumb, you're saying that you yourself are dumb. Because intelligent people are bored by people who are dumb. They don't want to spend a ton of time around them, and they also don't want them birthing and raising their kids. Also, a marriage is a business relationship. So if you are turned off to women who are intelligent, and you don't want to partner with them, you're saying that you want to go into business ultimately with a dummy. Like, I think you're dumb if you're in that position. That makes absolutely no sense. To say boss babe traits are masculine is to say that you know nothing of history and know nothing of women in general. If a woman being these things makes you feel emasculated, it's because you're not manly, you're not strong, and you yourself are lacking in intelligence and character, so you're looking for somebody who is beneath you. Because like Ayn Rand said, and like I believe, if you were up here, you wouldn't be attracted to people down here. Like attracts like. Men have got to get over these hangups and work on themselves. Ultimately, we need new parameters, I think, for both men and women so that they can get along and benefit from one another in an equal playing field. But to do that, I really do think a lot of these men need to do some deep inner work. They need to heal. They need to work on themselves. They need to get over their bitterness and their anger. They need to process that. And they need to find ways to feel secure about themselves without having to have women subjugated beneath them. Ultimately, you're not hurting the true boss babes when you lash out like this. Who you're hurting is a lot of innocent people who are desperate to find love and connection, and who oftentimes are hurting just as much as you are. Statistically, boss babes are actually doing just fine. Higher educated women are not only more likely to marry, they're more likely to stay married. But what you are going to do is convince a whole lot of women who would be up for partnerships with you if you were nice and a good person to just give up on men altogether. I know nobody acts this way if they are a happy, healed person, and so ultimately I try to have empathy for these people, but it can only go so far. When you continuously bully women, when you try to drag them down, when you try to make them feel bad about themselves, at some point, enough is enough. These tactics are not going to work. They're just going to push you further down and isolate you more and make you feel even worse about yourself. I promise, if you actually just try working on yourself, you'll feel a lot better and your prospects will look a lot better too. All right, guys, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. If you like this episode, don't forget to check out others in my series, Histrionics, here. And you can watch my other weekly show, Hannah Explains It All, here.